public relations and LinkedIn consultancy. And I'm here today for another edition of PR Patter, my semi-weekly show where I chat with the amazing people from across my public relations and LinkedIn network. And it's just so great to be here with you again today. I'm pretty excited because I have a special guest today, John Ellison, formerly of LinkedIn, who I'm really delighted to have on board today. So let me tell you a little bit about John. Starting over 10 years ago as a support representative at LinkedIn, John witnessed the formative years that included such momentous occasions as the formation of LinkedIn News, the acquisition by Microsoft, and the launch of the Creator Accelerator program. His background includes email marketing at Hayneedle, which was later acquired by Walmart, and Smart Ads project management at Yahoo. He currently freelances as a LinkedIn content strategist for Fortune 500 companies and their executives. So welcome, John. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what really counts today on LinkedIn? Like what's new and exciting?
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing is what's old is new again, and what that means is great content. The old tricks as far as just leading with intelligence, leading with thought leadership, leading with authenticity. There are certain formats certainly that resonate more. I think you put it out in your newsletter, excuse me, yesterday. With regards to short form video, they're really pushing towards as far as just putting up bits and bytes as far as those types of information that they're really playing with and trying to get really like snippets of those types of information.
So is LinkedIn turning into TikTok?
Great question. No, they're just trying to get you where you want to be. You think about it, if you're in, mass transportation situations, if you're, in the cab, in the Uber, on the train, just maybe cooking dinner and you just want a little bit of information at a short amount of time. They just want to catch you. Maybe you have a little bit more amount of time and you want to check out somebody's newsletter. You can check your email and you'll have a new edition in there. They just want to kind of make the platform more sticky for you. So those are the types of ways. They're just trying to make it a little bit more immersive for you with the ways and the means that they can get that information to you.
Great. Tell us a bit about LinkedIn newsletters and the importance of those. I know I have one. I know a number of my clients have been thinking about doing a newsletter, but in larger companies, it is a little bit harder with just because you've got to get additional content approved and it's got to go through a lot of different channels.
Yeah, especially for larger companies, they're super powerful because you don't have to go through the the curation that it takes to get that audience up and running. So you think about it with an off-platform newsletter, you have to have weeks and months sometimes to build that audience. So say if you have one of the companies that I supported was Microsoft. And so when they first launched their newsletter, they had 10 million subscribers potentially because they had 10 million followers. And so the reason that happened was because when you first launched that first edition of that newsletter, there's a notification that goes out one time to all of your followers that say, hey, Microsoft has launched their first edition of that newsletter. Would you like to check out and potentially subscribe? And so if you think about it, that's a pretty powerful tool. That's a notification that appears at the top of your notification feed that says, hey, check this out. And so the early metrics were, it was about a 10% follower to subscriber conversion. And then that tripled after about 3 to 4 weeks. And so that's pretty powerful. It actually grew. And I know that they're doing certain things to kind of reintegrate that as far as, people who have gone a certain amount of time between being a follower and not yet a subscriber. So say, the newsletter's been out for 3 to 6 months. and you're still a follower and not yet a subscriber, they might
Yeah,
re-push that notification out and say, hey, it looks
that's
like you're not
great.
yet a subscriber. So look out for things like that. But so there's that with regards to companies. So there's that reason alone that companies should be creating a newsletter. The other reason is it's a way to kind of get that information that you're already talking about in front of your audiences again. So if you're already creating those posts and it might not be getting the traction or the visibility that you might be hoping for, you can kind of use that as a digest to kind of resurface that information. So it's almost like giving a second glance opportunity for that. And additionally, once those people subscribe to that newsletter, you're hitting them from a push notification and an email notification standpoint. So you're hitting them where they want to be hit at. So you're giving them the opportunity to say, once that newsletter is published, I'm getting that push, I'm getting that email saying, hey, here's another opportunity for that content to be resurfaced. So there's a bunch of notifications that can be resurfaced, and there's a bunch of ways for that content to be put in front of your subscribers.
That's great. I mean, that's a wonderful tool, engagement tool for sure, and to help build your newsletter list.
Right.
I love
right.
that. That's fantastic. With more than I just read that there's 1 billion users on LinkedIn right now. I mean, that's just like mind-boggling in itself. In 200 countries around the world. I mean, if you're not on LinkedIn and really, using it as a public relations and marketing tool, you're really missing out today. I know with my clients, they're using it to engage internal audiences, employees, team members, also to elevate the particular executive whose account it is, to be more visible within the organization, to really position them as a leader so that they're really top of mind when promotion comes about, but also to engage external audiences, obviously, to look to find strategic partners, and again, to elevate the company and build up its competitive advantage. But what are some of the other ways that leaders can shine on the platform, John?
Yeah, just from a thought leadership perspective, I mean, it's become somewhat of a branding tool. If you think about it, some of the ways that these leaders play anymore is just building that professional brand. You're not even just talking about strategic partnerships, but these leaders are talking about hobbies. One of the early creators that I supported, he's the VP of innovation at Oracle. His name's Bertrand Kaplanaloo. He loves talking about AI and technology and how it's being utilized in the space. And so for him, content creation is actually a hobby for him. And so it's a way for these VPs to actually kind of scratch that itch, so to speak, and actually talk about the things that they're passionate about. And so that comes out, and that creates that connection with their audience. And so he was actually able to grow his followership from 8,000 to I believe he's at almost 50,000 within 2 years.
That's incredible. Wow.
It's pretty crazy. And it took was just a little bit of we didn't really have to change his content that much. It was just kind of pointing him in the right direction. And I think that's kind of like the common misperception is you don't really have to change that much about your content. It's just, maybe refocusing, changing a little bit about your tone, maybe targeting and finding different ways to nuance your content, maybe find cross sections where, if in Bertrand's case, he likes to talk about tech and AI. Are there intersectionalities where that AI can cross section with healthcare, with wearable technologies, with different types of things that are hot button topics on different types of conversations that are happening on LinkedIn. And so the way that you can expand into those audiences. And so the kind of going back to your question though, the way that these leaders can really kind of go back, it's more than just strategic partnerships. It's actually just building that knowledge base, that thought leadership, and just kind of branding themselves as saying like, hey, this person is more than just talking about their company and they're building their business. It's actually saying this person really is a person in the know, and this is a person that I myself want to follow to know more about AI, to know about
Right.
finance, to know about healthcare. And this is a person that, even from a news perspective, I just want to be someone to follow.
That's great. That's a great description of how we've been using it for sure. Um, what is, everybody's vies for getting the top voice badge on their LinkedIn profile. I know I received it recently and was jumping for joy. Why is that so important? Why is that so important?
It's the badge. It's something that everybody wants to chase. I think it's been alive since the Bluebird of the Twitter days. But we I say we from my time at LinkedIn, but the influencer program was done away with at LinkedIn to kind of democratize the program. There was the influencer program, and then there was the Top Voices program. There were two separate programs, and at the time it was felt like the influencer program was something that was almost unattainable just from a celebrity status platform, but it was being underutilized. These influencers were people that were just kind of on the platform and weren't really doing anything with that. The top voices were the ones that were actually contributing to the platform. Excuse me. And so the influencer was done away and the top voices was spread across the platform. And so to kind of give a little bit of context about everything. And so with that, it kind of it spread across everything, and it made Top Voices something that everyone could achieve. And so it said, hey, everybody has a voice, everybody can get there. The best way to go about getting it is to just kind of stop chasing it, is kind of, to be perfectly honest with you, just build your platform, be you, create content, be authentic, talk about things that are relevant to the platform, are relevant to your audience. Be active on the platform in the comment section, within the LinkedIn news, within the trending topics. Just be very active on the platform. And there are those AI related community contents that get served to you. That's a great way to kind of start getting a foothold into the community Top Voices. That's a great way to kind of get noticed, because the Top Voices are, it's an editorial selection process. And so they go through at kind of random intervals and say, these are ways that these are people that are getting noticed. And then you'll get kind of picked up by the community management team, as you well know, Julie. And then you kind of get fostered by that community. And once you get there, then you kind of get leveled up, so to speak, from a video gamer perspective. And once you get that, then you kind of understand exactly how the platform works. And so there's not really a way to really codify or gamify the platform. The best way, because I get asked this all the time, there's not really a cheat code to do it. And so the best way is to just not try and rack your brain.
Right.
Just keep being you, keep creating the great content, and keep being active on the platform.
How long do you keep it for?
How long do you keep the Top Voice?
Yeah.
As long as you're active. There are certain criteria that you have to meet with regards to the amount of posts that you have to meet, with the amount of comments that you have to kind of just keep with regards to it, but you can keep it indefinitely.
A lot of people ask me, how active do I have to be on LinkedIn to get some traction? I have found, and I'd love to know your perspective on this, I have found that posting about 3 times a week is a really good kind of rhythm to keep up.
Yeah.
And I usually do it on consecutive days. What do you think about that? And does posting on consecutive days mean anything? What do you think?
Yeah, it does. The kind of common sweet spot that, at my time at LinkedIn that we used to kind of advise was Tuesday through Thursday is kind of the heavy traffic days for LinkedIn. Usually morning to mid to late afternoon is kind of like the timing of the day. Time zones can kind of play a little bit of chaos. But usually those are kind of the Pacific time zones that they range just because of the time that like the Pacific wakes up essentially. And so the weekends are a little bit slower usage. The only caveat to that is, when news breaks, nobody can predict that. And so the case that I like to say is when Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, said he was going to leave. That broke over the weekend, and that broke the internet on a Saturday, essentially. And so that was getting reported all over, and that woke up all the editors at LinkedIn, and everybody was trying to post and break this news. And so,
Right.
You can't predict the news any more than you can try and predict the weather. And so there are certain extenuating circumstances like that, but you're pretty spot on. Kind of 2 to 3 times a week, usually midweek, Tuesday to Thursday, morning to midday is kind of like your sweet spots for your cadence.
In your time zone.
Yeah, in your time zone. But the other thing I will always add is don't just post just to post. Always have something to say. Always make sure that you have
Right. Don't just fill
a
the
topic of
space.
conversation.
Don't just fill the space because you feel like you need a second or third post for that week. You got to have
Exactly.
you have to have some meat to it and some reason.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you want to keep people's attention and respect, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want them to think that you're posting junk.
Yeah, exactly. Because one of the things that, the LinkedIn algorithm does pick up on is when you're trying to start a conversation. If you're just posting into a vacuum saying, this meme of have a great day, you're not going to get anywhere. In fact, you're going to get knocked back.
Right. One of the things I also get asked a lot about, John, and I'm confused about it myself, are hashtags. And are they still relevant on the platform or not really because of AI?
It's not really AI that makes them so irrelevant, so to speak. It's the actual algorithm. The algorithm, the updates to the algorithm has made them less important to use. So back when I started as a community manager, we preached the power of hashtags. Utilizing them to kind of increase the searchability of your post. So saying, including a hashtag when you're talking about sustainability. So utilizing hashtag sustainability, hashtag green work, hashtag, things of that nature. So when they did the feed updates and the algorithmic updates, they did so with the spirit in mind that the algorithm would do the work for you, so you wouldn't have to include those hashtags, saying that the content would be the key.
Right.
And so as long as you're making sure that your content was the point, because the reason was people were creating content that was not about sustainability, but including a hashtag in there to basically kind of double dip in order to kind of increase the reach of their content. So having a post about tech and AI and then having a hashtag about sustainability to say it increases their ability to get search and followers. And so it was kind of, there was some shady actors, so to speak, misusing hashtags for content purposes. And so they're saying, okay, we're going to kind of reduce the ability of people to do this by saying, we're now going to have the algorithm say, we're going to look solely at the content and reduce the ability of hashtags to kind of have the content be misused in that fashion.
Got it. In terms of connections, this is another question I get asked a lot too. I think you have to be selective, right? In terms of
Yes.
Accepting invitations from people that you don't really know. Usually if it's a second degree connection and I think it's worthwhile for some of my clients that work for very large, Fortune 500 companies, typically if they're not an employee of the company or on the board of directors that my client sits on at another company, another organization, I don't accept the invitation.
Yeah, connections are something that I keep pretty close to the vest as well, especially because of my time as a former LinkedIn employee. People want to connect with me just because of that, badge of honor.
Right.
That's why there's the follow button. That's why that was introduced. If you truly, want to be someone that to keep in the know of my content, then follow me. If you're someone that I know kind of personally or professionally, if there's some type of professional benefit, kind of as you mentioned, then yes, the connection can be made on LinkedIn. So that's kind of the differentiating factor in my personal opinion that can be made from a connection to a follow. People keep it, a little bit more loose. Back before kind of like the creator days, in the recruitment Wild West, as kind of we used to call it. Recruiters were just connections willy-nilly. But there is a connection limitation of about, I think it's like 30,000 connections. And people have hit that, and some people wear that as a badge of honor. I personally, I don't necessarily agree with that. It's like
Right. Like,
you
can
really
you
have
really know
30,000 friends?
30,000 people? Right.
Exactly. And can you count those as 30,000 friends? Like I don't have 30,000 people at my wedding. I won't have 30,000 people at my funeral. So,
I hope not.
exactly. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the distinction that I keep between connections, and followers. I personally, I would much rather have 30,000 followers than 30,000 connections.
I mean, I do work with executives who only have followers. They don't have connections. In other
Right.
words, they
Yeah.
have, not as many connections at all. And in
Right.
fact, you cannot send them an invite, right? You can only follow them.
Right. Yeah. I personally have my profile set that you have to have my email address before you can send me a connection. So that's
Right.
just a limitation that I have set.
Right. Do you think, and that's been working for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to say it's a deterrent, because it's not meant to be that. It's more as saying you have to know me, or I have to know you in order to kind of like have that actual connection, because that's what it's meant to be.
Right. So I've found over the years that LinkedIn has a number of features that not many people know about. Um, and I'm wondering if you might be able to share any of those with us today. What they're not secret, but they're not
Yeah.
necessarily promoted that
Hmm.
much as either.
Wow, you're kind of putting me on the spot on this one.
Maybe it's something to do with the profile. That's another thing I get asked about a lot is, in your profile where you can have a customized URL.
Yeah.
What should you link to? How should you use that?
Yeah, the customized URL is definitely an underutilized feature. The skills are definitely an underutilized feature because of the searchability of those.
So in other words, that the skills, and because some people find it a pain to put, to tick off the skills for each item in their experience section. But you're saying that it's worthwhile
they,
because
they are, because especially from a recruitment perspective, recruiters search for those. Especially if you're someone who is open to be, open to recruitment, open to be found. And even, from, like a news perspective, I know news editors who use those skills to be found for
really,
networking perspectives, for, to be found as like sources. So those are opportunities to kind of like be utilized from that perspective, if you have those utilized. Networking skills are a great add for those as well. So I think that's something that's kind of slept on, in my personal opinion, is skills for sure.
I still get pushback from people who are afraid to update their profiles because they're in a senior position and they're afraid to update their profiles for fear that their employers will think they're looking for a job.
I would counter that in especially that from the positions that I've seen, that companies should almost view it as a badge of honor,
I
because
agree. I totally
the
agree.
the better the profile, saying that, again, going back to the Burgeon example, he's someone that utilizes his profile as a living, breathing resume. And so the higher his profile reaches, the better it looks for Oracle as a company, saying that this is a person who's been at Oracle for X amount of years. And the fact that we've retained him for this long says that we can keep top talent like this. And so that's exactly
Exactly.
why, your profile should be up to date. Companies should no longer be scared of this. Companies should tout this. Companies should reward this. And so I think most of the companies that, I've worked with, that I've seen, are starting to kind of flip the script on that. I think, some of the companies that do have that mindset have tended to be a little bit more of the old guard, maybe some of the more like older financial institutions
But are they really
that,
sitting, are their HR departments really sitting there looking at everybody's LinkedIn profile?
if they do, then they probably have a little bit too much time on their hands.
I mean, that just
To
sounds
be
crazy to me.
right. I think especially in today's kind of market and economy, I think, if your HR department is sifting through profiles to that manner, I think there's just so many open roles, open jobs, so many people looking for work, that if your recruitment department is just looking at your employees' LinkedIn profiles, then you probably might be needing to take a look at what your recruiters are doing, to be perfectly honest with you. So I would hope that's a little bit less the case than the opposite. But yeah, I really think that, if your companies are looking at LinkedIn profiles and saying like, your LinkedIn profile is really up to date and it's really bright and it's really shiny, are you looking to leave? Then that might not be a company that I want to work for
Right,
personally.
exactly. Where they create this sense of paranoia.
Yeah.
Um, so my last question is, oh, it just went out of my head. Ah, oh well. Anyway, is there anything else that you'd like to add about what's happening with LinkedIn today? And oh yes, I know. You know, companies that one of the posts I did for my one of my clients talked about, she has a very large team, thousands of people. And one of
Sure.
the posts that just blew up was about encouraging her team to get active on LinkedIn. Do you think
Mhm.
companies are putting enough effort into that and encouraging people to get on LinkedIn at all levels of the organization? Because as you
I
said, I love how you put it, that it's a badge of honor to
Yeah,
be active.
I think they're beginning to. I think the wave is starting to come through. Some of the companies that I've started to freelance with, and that's something that I've definitely tried to push. Even from my time at LinkedIn, is that brand advocacy is one of the easiest types of free marketing that a company can have. Um, from an organic perspective, you don't have to pay for that type of marketing if you can easily work with your own employees to say that if you're active on LinkedIn with the types of work that your own company is doing, and you can educate your employees on how to intelligently speak about that on LinkedIn with a way that resonates with your audience, then you've hit the honeypot, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that is so important on LinkedIn from a content perspective. And that's something that LinkedIn really wants to hear about, especially from an internal perspective, is, they want to hear from the employees. Whether it's, positive or negative, they want to hear from the employees themselves. And so if a company can be kind of in control of the narrative, I don't want to say like put a PR spin, but they want companies to know that this is what their employees are saying. They want to be their best brand advocates. And most importantly, if a company can be the true and honest voice of the employees, then what have you really got to lose? So yeah, absolutely, companies
Yeah.
should be working with their employees to understand how they can have their employees communicate on LinkedIn.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. John, thank you so much for being here. This has been
Absolutely.
such a rich conversation.
Yeah, it's
You've
been
got
fun. Thanks for having me on.
you've got such great expertise.